Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time on Doctor Who Classic, we had the Savages. What all happened on that one?
Well, they were supposedly really, really far into the future, but they seemed to land on a planet. I think the Doctor had been there before. You have this incredibly advanced civilization who apparently were even expecting the Doctor to show up. But as it turns out, the reason they are so advanced is they have been literally taking the life force out of the other inhabitants of the planet, reducing them to basically primitive caveman kind of status. And of course, at the end, they, as always, equalize it basically, letting harmony reign in the universe. I don't know exactly, but then the big surprise. They didn't know how they were going to run this thing, and the Doctor says, well, here's the man you need to run it, and says, Stephen, you should stay here and keep these people happy. And he went, okay, and then he was gone. And it's like, what?
Yeah, there was no real build up to it. I mean, he got a semi-decent send-off, they shook hands, when they went their separate ways and stuff, but it really kind of came out of nowhere.
Seriously, I mean, there was no discussion anywhere during the 4 episodes of this. He didn't seem to make any major contributions to the thing.
Yeah, he was just kind of along for the ride on this story. So,
and no, the Doctor was not in 1 or 2 of the episodes, if I recall. Did he? He seemed to be a background character.
Well, yeah, on some of them he was because they were trying to take his life force energy, so he was kind of out for a little bit. So,
and you would think if they were planning Stephen's exit, that he would have had more to say rather than just being the flunky, the muscle. But then suddenly, out of nowhere, at the end, when they say, "How are we supposed to get along, Doctor? You should stay here," and he goes, "No, I can't stay, but take this guy with you." It's like, makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it was very random. Which, I mean, people have said in the comments that companion exits on this show they just sort of happen, and we've kind of seen that before too with Vicky, even in that episode, it's like, oh, she's going to stay behind in Troy. Like, okay, I guess you made a friend there, but it seems kind of weird, but whatever. Yeah. And I mean, I think the same thing also sort of applies to when the Doctor exits, that it's just, well, he has to regenerate. He regenerates. Here's the new Doctor. All right, let's go. Apparently in modern Doctor Who, they make a bigger deal out of, well, especially the Doctor, and also when a companion leaves. So,
and there was one other thing we were trying to figure out. What the theme was, what was going on in the '60s that this might have been about. You and I, of course, living in the United States, thought it really kind of paralleled what the Americans did to the natives here in North America. But we were also kind of speculating that this might have been perhaps something, European and Africa. A lot of the African nations were breaking away in the late 50s and early 60s. And I had mentioned Rhodesia. I forgot to look that up. But, this also could have been South Africa or Namibia or Southwest Africa, whatever it was called back then. And again, there's a lot of these British and French and I suppose even Italian. I think they had Ethiopia at one point. And Belgian colonies were just finally standing up and saying, enough with the European invasions, colonization, whatever you want to call it. We need to stand on our own. And so it kind of has that theme to it too, at least to us.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and obviously when the episode is called The Savages, it's like, okay, this is a little on the nose here. So, but it is interesting to kind of think okay, so which are we talking about here? So
it could have been all of them, all of the above.
Yeah, it could have, honestly. Now today we are moving on to the finale of season 3, technically. Finale in that it is the last episode of season 3, technically. I've actually heard that, because we've had before, the first 2 episodes of season 2 were technically made with the rest of season 1, so those technically are a part of season 1. And when you look at it like that, okay, that makes a bit more sense with Susan's departure in at the end of the Dalek invasion of Earth. So, but apparently for this one, season 4 episode 1 was originally supposed to be the season 3 finale, meaning that the 10th planet is the season 4 premiere. So it's all sorts of weird. So, but at least this one, to round out the longest season we've had so far, this is a complete serial.
Yay.
And get used to that, because from what I've seen, like I kind of looked ahead at the rest of the schedule and stuff, and like most of season 4 is missing, and a good chunk of season 5. Now, on a bunch of them, I did see like animated episodes, so that does at least make up some of it. But yeah, it's gonna be a little bit before we really get out of these recons and stuff. So yeah, we are also still playing copyright roulette to see whether or not we will have to put these episodes to a highlight. So as you guys have seen with the Celestial Toymaker, that I had to take the reaction out. Interesting fact, the Gunfighters was fine. That was the first video I uploaded in weeks where there was just like almost no copyright problems at all. So that was interesting, that a complete episode was fine, but the recon episode before that wasn't fine. So
makes no sense.
Yeah, and obviously I haven't edited the Savages yet, so I have no idea if that one's good or not. So we're just going to kind of keep playing the copyright roulette. If it is the case that we need to send this to a highlight, that just means you have to head down in the description or to the pinned comments, click on the link. That will take you over to the reaction. You can watch it just like any other reaction. And when you're done with that, you can pop right back over here to this YouTube video for the discussion. But it's entirely possible that that's not going to be the case, and you just have to wait 5 seconds and the video will start just right here. So let's go ahead and find out. Let's get into the War Machines.
The War Machines. Now, you want to talk about something that sounds like the Daleks, but let's hope it's not.
No, I don't think so, but I think they're coming back soon. So, also, I did learn that the Gunfighters was the last serial to have individual episode names. Because we noticed that with the Savages, that it was just episode 1, and apparently that's just from here on out. It's just episode 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, why they did that?
I don't know. I have no idea why they would change that. I guess they just got tired of it.
Considering the myth makers, the ones from ancient Troy, some of those were, I went back and read on that like the last episode was supposed to be called "Is There a Doctor in the Horse?" which was very funny, and the small profit, big return, or something like that. Those were all very funny, and I just just to go, this is now episode 1, episode 2. It's kind of dull.
Yeah. So anyway, now let's get started.
That was very weird.
I mean, we thought Steven was rushed, but he got a handshake and a see you later, Or, I mean, even Katarina died, but that was on screen,
It seems to me that he said that she wouldn't remember, and, obviously the events of this particular serial, but it would have made more sense to say she doesn't remember, and we talked to her and asked her about you, and she couldn't remember you, and he'd have to say something like, I've wiped her memory out. She won't remember that. So just something other than just she sends her love, wants to stay here. Bye bye. How terrible!
Yeah,
I'm grateful of her.
You couldn't get the actress back just for a small cameo, just to say goodbye. That was very, very odd.
The whole episode seemed a little rushed.
Yeah, we said like it feels like we should have 6 episodes instead of 4. Honestly, yeah, kind of did need 6 episodes or 5 or something a bit more.
They could have cut down that fight scene at the end of 3 and put some of this in there and kind of stretched it out a little bit. But other than that, I mean, it's a good story.
Yeah, it is.
Although, again, the resolution of having the one machine go in and destroy Votan seems to, again, not up to where you would expect. If Votan knew that it was coming because it seemed to be able to control all the others, how did it not then try to override the new programming to get it to stop? So it's a little contrived, but other than that, and the unfortunate exit of Dodo, very enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, and also too, because you also sort of expect some sort of interaction between Votan and the Doctor, and that just never really happens.
Yeah.
So, and if anything, we were kind of saying, the past couple episodes, like, oh, well, the Doctor's not really doing much. Ben is out there, like, looking for Polly and stuff like that, but the Doctor's really not doing anything. Honestly, the Doctor very easily solved this situation. Granted, they had to set up the whole trap for the machine anyway, but still, it's like, just went in, reprogrammed it, and then sent it in, and it destroyed Votan. So it's like...
Well, again, we're looking at this from 60 years on. In 1963, I don't know how many people would have understood about reprogramming a machine like that. So, for them, it was probably, wow, he was able to fix the one machine to go fight the other machine. So we have to kind of tamp down what we already know about computers, 60 years on.
That's true. So, but yeah, I mean, other than stuff like that, it is overall a good episode.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can kind of go into the notes. I mean, the first thing I wrote down was Votan, which, again, an interesting villain. It does, especially once you get the war machines themselves, it's like, okay, you can't not compare these guys to the Daleks, and it's odd because it's like, okay, like, they're like the Daleks, but they're bigger, a bit clumsier.
I was going to say clumsier.
And have no personalities. The Daleks, I mean, even from the beginning, they've had more personality than these guys. Obviously, the war machines never talked or anything. It was all Votan. And even then, we didn't get a whole lot of Votan, and could hardly understand the guy, so...
Yeah, that last thing, whatever he said, that last thing, didn't understand a word of it.
I caught it, but now I don't remember what he said, so... Like, I barely caught what he said. I just don't remember it now. But, I mean, it is an interesting villain, and it also is a good, like, establishing point for this type of villain, other than the Daleks, like, when we bring back, like, the Great Intelligence and stuff like that later on. Like, it's a good starting point for this sort of computerized villain.
Yeah.
And it could also, like... start to lend itself also to like the Cybermen, which I think it should be coming up soon. But yeah,
didn't Patrick Troughton introduce the Cybermen? Didn't we see? Wasn't Tomb of the Cybermen him?
Yeah, I don't remember if that was the first Cybermen episode though. So I don't know.
But we only have two more of Hartnell, so I don't think either one of these are Cybermen.
Maybe, I don't know. We'll have to see. That would be very interesting if that's how he went out on the Cybermen. So, let's see. We do have our two new companions. Just in the course of 2 episodes, we've completely shaken up the companions. So, and yeah, I mean, we said Steven's exit was rushed, but I mean, I do like Ben and Polly. So, so that's pretty good. And also just kind of looking back on this, Dodo didn't have a lot of time on the show, did she?
Mm-mm.
Like, let me look at the actual... Yeah, so the Ark was her first true story. Toymaker, Gunfighter, Savages. She got 5 episodes. 5-ish episodes. And this last episode, she was really only partly in it, so... Yeah, not a whole lot of Dodo.
Makes you wonder, did the producers not like where her character was going? Because they've literally just replaced her with somebody who's just like her, another girl from the 60s. Now, again, I understand Ben, because, he's a sailor. He's obviously equipped with, military training. He's a nice young man. He's going to be the muscle, but he's not a dummy.
Yeah.
But again,
he's not quite as built as Ian or Steven, but I mean, you're right. He is a sailor. He does have a bit of that training. So,
and I guess now we kind of got the idea that Polly was more than just a secretary, because when she was introduced as the scientist secretary, she looked at Dodo and kind of went, It's like yeah, I know a little bit more than that. So maybe we will in the succeeding episodes here. I just taught a whole unit on the Civil War, and I've got secession on my mind. But yeah, maybe she will prove to be more of a bit of a scientist herself. So because other than that, if she's just a bird from the 60s, I don't know where that's going.
Well, I mean, because it seems like we kind of have we had sort of 2 different roles for our companions. There was either the Ian and Barbara role, or there was the Susan role. And after Susan, we had Vicky, and then Dodo filled that in as well. But now, with Ben and Polly, it almost seems like they're going to be filling in the Ian and Barbara role. But, yeah, we're not really sure if Polly can actually fill that Barbara role. Which I guess we haven't had that sort of person, that character, since Barbara.
Well, Vicky, in little ways, because she was from the future and you had all these degrees.
Yeah.
But she never really got a chance to show that off very much.
Yeah. So I'm also very curious how long we're going to keep these two around, because Tomb of the Cybermen is the beginning of season 5, and we're just about to start season 4, and by then the Doctor has Jamie and Victoria. So I'm very curious as to how long they're going to live. We're really going through like just a spinning wheel of companions, really. So it'll be interesting if I just want someone to stick for a little while, you know?
By the way, minor point here. I may have mentioned this before. But I finished 9th grade in the spring of 1966. And my parents allowed me to go on a field trip, but there was no adult supervision. You know, I would have been 14, 15 years old. So a couple of friends of mine, 9th graders, we all hopped on a bus and went down for a day trip to London. So I would have been in London right about this time. It would have been, again, probably between the 15th of May and the 1st of June of 1966. And so I would have literally been in London while this is supposedly going on.
Yeah. Now, you said you didn't recognize that tower. So,
but it must have been fairly new. But then again, I was more interested. I mean, we saw London Bridge, and we went to Trafalgar Square and Piccadilly Circus. We rode the tube. Actually went to a movie. We saw, I think, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and one of the beautiful old downtown movie theaters there in London. That's basically it. Again, went to the British Museum of Natural History. So, just basically 9th grade history nerds wandering around London for a day.
Yeah. Now you never saw the Doctor Who movies in theaters?
No. Again, to my knowledge, the only 2 movies that I saw in British cinemas were Hard Day's Night and Help. Because we did have a theater on base where they were bringing over American films, but I don't remember. I don't even remember hearing that there were Doctor Who films.
That's very interesting, because I guess they were pretty big in the UK. Yeah. So it's interesting that you just never heard of that. Now I remember the first one was 1965. I don't remember if the second one was 66 or not.
But Hard Day's Night would have come out about 64, 65, and there was a little cinema in Mildenhall, and we went and saw that there, and I think that's also probably where we saw Help, although Help might have come out a little bit later. If Help came out after June of 66, I would have seen it in the United States. So
let's see, I wrote down New Overlords for Votan, which again, it is the very, just it's interesting, because it's like, now in the Terminator with Skynet, wasn't it that it was getting really smart and then maybe like the humans were going to shut it down or something? Like, wasn't there something else that caused Skynet to go rogue?
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen that, but
I don't fully remember. But because that's the thing, is that here it's like, well, we've created this machine that is, it's much smarter than humans. It never says how Votan knew what TARDIS meant. It's like that's a little too smart for just being made by humans. But
because there would have been no other reference to TARDIS at this time, supposedly. Because the Doctor was only there with Susan for a short while. Then they stopped in for literally 3 minutes to pick up Dodo. And Barbara and Ian, when they went back, they were not using the TARDIS; they were using the Daleks machine. So that was kind of a red herring.
Yeah, it's like, especially too, because in the continuity, even at this point, they established that Susan was the one that came up with the name TARDIS. So, yeah, it does seem a bit odd that Votan was able to figure that one out. So, yeah, but still, it's like, okay, so we made this machine. It's super smart, and it just decides, all right, I'll take over. I'll enslave the humans, and if you get in my way, then I'll kill you all, and I'll make the world better. And it's like, okay, well, that's great, but what tipped you off here? Like, well, especially, too, because it's like, you know, we kept bringing up Ultron, and in Age of Ultron, at least, I don't know what happens in the comics, but in the movie, you know, Ultron goes and, you know, like, sees the entire internet and all of, like, human history and everything in an instant, and he's like, oh, you guys seem like you're a problem, so I'm gonna deal with that. Whereas this, it's like, no, Votan didn't study the internet because there is none.
I got the impression that the idea that it became sentient, as it were, when it connected to all the other computer networks.
Yeah.
And
Maybe.
again, and that seems to be because you have this one incredibly intelligent machine, but it is suddenly being fed into from the United States and then British Parliament, and it probably was hooking up to somewhere in Russia and, you know, India and China, places like that. So it would gain a level of knowledge theoretically simply when it connects. But yeah, it also seemed that they were trying to say that it was achieving this form of intelligence before it made the connection, and that again,
Yeah.
and again, we may be overthinking this because we're not in 1966. In 1966,
Yeah.
there are very few people that would have understood that.
Right. Now, one thing that we never found out was, why did Votan need the Doctor? Because we never got that, because the Doctor never went there. We never had that interaction. But it always said, you know, Doctor Who is required, which obviously we're waiting for that moment where the Doctor says, no, it's just the Doctor. You don't need to say Doctor Who. But yeah, it's like, you know, we can sort of speculate, like, well, because he is such a higher intelligence, maybe this is the only intelligence that can rival Votan, so maybe he wants to understand him. We're not sure. Like, the closest we got was the telephone call, which didn't work on the Doctor. You know, he pretty much resisted it. And then it's like, okay, so was he... I guess he was trying to hypnotize the Doctor and get him to work, but would that be to, like, use his brain to make Votan better, make the machines better? We don't really know.
Yeah.
We never find out why Votan wanted the Doctor.
A loose thread.
Yeah. So... let's see. It's interesting that, you know, this is all hypnosis with taking control of all the people. Because that's interesting. Like, you know, there are future episodes, like when the Cybermen, like, sort of take just humans and they don't fully transform them into Cybermen, but they just need them to do something. So they'll always have, like, a device in their ears that, like,
Yeah.
you know, takes control of their brains. This is just pure hypnosis, which is an interesting idea.
The sound hypnosis.
Yeah. So, and I do like that, again, that the Doctor just, you know, he figured out that that's what happened to Dodo, which, I mean, she wasn't being subtle, really, when she was trying to get the Doctor somewhere else. So there is that, but then just immediately just going in and doing the hypnosis and then fixing her, basically.
Yeah.
So.
And again, I thought that when he said, you know, when you wake up, you won't remember any of this. I thought at the end there, they'd come back and say, well, you know, we were talking to Dodo and she doesn't remember you. She doesn't, you know, perhaps she has amnesia or something. And he says, oh no, you know, I wiped her memory of her time with me.
Which, I mean, there are future companions where that happens, where he does have to sort of erase their memory. It's a bit more, you know, well, first off, those are better send-offs, you know, because that's, and especially in modern Doctor Who, when it's a huge deal that they did this. The only thing is, like, for those companions, like, oh, they've been with the Doctor so long and they have to get their memory erased, and that's so horrible. Where it's like, yeah, if it was here, though, if they did erase Dodo's memory, it's like, oh, wow, that sucks. She forgets the Doctor and everything that happened and stuff. But it's like, again, that's only 5 adventures that she would be forgetting. So it honestly wouldn't be that bad.
Yeah, just 3 or 4 months. Because she really doesn't show up until the very end of St. Bartholomew's Eve.
Right.
So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So she's about 18 episodes. So 18 weeks.
Yeah.
It's barely over 4 months. If she were to simply wake up and go, oh, wow, I've had amnesia. I wonder, you know, last thing I remember was getting into a call box to try to save some kid or something.
Something like that, which someone someone left a comment that like there's an audio or a comic or a book or something where like I don't know. Apparently, like the kid thing was like a lie. She was being chased by a god or something. I don't know. I don't know. They could have been lying. I don't know. Yeah. It was very odd. It's like it could have just been a kid. I still worry about that kid. It's like, did that kid ever get help? She went to get for help, and then I don't know.
But there were a couple of policemen.
Yeah, they were coming over the hill anyway. Yeah. So this has been a weird set of companion entrances and exits. So, and just down to, it's like, oh, where are we meeting our next two companions? Like, okay, well, we met Polly, at the tower. Like, okay, that makes sense. Now let's go to the club, and then we'll meet this sad sailor, and then he just happens to, get involved in all this.
But, again, thinking back on that, though, that's kind of a good setup, because he's depressed because he wasn't able to ship out. He's saying, I'm stuck here doing a desk sort of job, and I really wanted to get some adventure. So, well, son, you're about to get the adventure of your entire lifetime. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. But again, the idea of her, most of what we see of her in this is in the nightclub where she's, just, nice little girl. And then she's the drone for the war machines.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm going on the fact that when we first saw her, she was a secretary to a very established scientist and perhaps knows more about that than is let on. So I don't know. That's what I'm hoping that they'll develop part of her character.
Man, it's going to be interesting because it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure it has to be these companions when the Doctor regenerates, unless they really decide to go all out and just like in the episode that he regenerates, he has new companions. But I don't see that happening. Yeah. But even still, they are barely going to know him by the time he regenerates. Yeah. So it's like it's odd. Like you almost expect like, well, Dodo, who has at least been here for a few episodes, or Steven, who has been here, who had been here the longest, like at least recently. It's like you almost expect them so that they can see the Doctor regenerate and then compare the second Doctor to the Doctor that they knew. Yeah. So.
Well, on the reverse of that, though, is he's got some relatively new people who really don't know him that well, don't know all of the background that we've already seen for the last almost 3 years. And so when he regenerates, it's like, oh, so what happened? And he says, well, this is what happens to me when, and then, okay, well, then they just kind of go off with the new guy. Yeah. And there's not all the, emotional baggage from the first Doctor.
That would be good, because that also happens a lot on modern Doctor Who, and especially because they make such a big deal when the Doctor regenerates in modern Doctor Who, that if a companion is still there when he regenerates, like it's gotten to the point where he almost has to plan ahead to make sure that they're okay, that they're not too shocked by the change in him, to where it's like, I think the first time is when Eccleston becomes Tennant. He still has Rose. And so she's, in disbelief that he did change. So later, when the 11th Doctor regenerates and he still has his companion, he actually, after he regenerates, his past self calls her in order to be like, hey, I know this was weird. Just stick with this guy. Stick with the Doctor. He needs you. Trust me. So yeah, maybe this will be good, that it's like, oh, they don't really know him. It's like, oh, well, this is a weird, now you look completely different. You're acting completely different, at least. But yeah, maybe it won't be quite the shock to the two of them.
Yeah.
So, let's see. And then I wrote down the War Machines, which, I mean, they were an interesting, interesting design. And yeah, they were like Daleks on steroids, basically. And just a lot clumsier, though.
Again, just very, very clumsy. They didn't... I mean, other than the fact that they could prevent guns from firing and grenades from blowing up, and they had, poison gas or whatever that was.
Yeah.
They really didn't seem to have much other, Yeah. It would seem to me that you could crush them somehow. They don't have any kind of force field around them, so, drop... a load of bricks on top of them, it would crush them. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems to be somewhat oddly conceived.
Yeah, it feels like, it honestly does feel like they were going to potentially be replacements for the Daleks. It's like, okay, well, we have to, it's like, oh, can I, can I copy off your homework? It's like, yeah, but make it different. And this is what we got. And it's like, okay, so
Biff Tannen version of the Daleks.
Yeah, basically. It's like, okay, well, they're a little bit bigger, so maybe that makes them a bit more threatening. It's like, no, that makes them a lot clumsier and not very maneuverable. Like, a Dalek is not the most maneuverable thing, in fiction, but I mean, it can at least sort of swing around and, point its gun. So these things, like, if they try to swing around to get to someone, it's going to take 10 minutes to do that, and you got to hope that they just haven't, just gone behind like a Tom and Jerry cartoon and are just standing behind you. So
oh no, your weakness is peripheral vision.
Yeah. Let's see. Wow. We did have Polly slightly break her hypnosis, which we're not really sure why. I mean, I guess the hypnosis does sort of wear off, which we saw with the one guy. Yeah. But I don't know. That seemed kind of weird because it didn't fully wear off either. It was just for letting Ben escape.
But I think what they were trying to do with that was that, again, her emotion, the fact that she had bonded with the guy's name, Ben.
Ben, yeah.
And that was preventing the reprogramming of her brain. But again, she went right back to it. So I don't know. It was kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
But that was the idea that I got, that she was able to at least momentarily break away because the emotion would allow her brain to overtake the mechanics of the hypnosis.
I guess. So it's one of those things where it's so weird. We almost just needed like just one more episode just to finish a few things. Like, okay, explain how Polly was able to break her hypnosis, get an interaction between Votan and the Doctor, and get an actual goodbye for Dodo. It's like, it's all you need,
Yeah.
So, just one more episode, basically. Let's see. We had the guns, the guns, they're all jamming, which took you 10 minutes to say that, or sitting here, it's like, so are they just not firing, or are they jammed,
again,
or...
That made no sense, because there's nothing in those guns from the 60s that would have had any kind of electronic component to them. They would have all been completely mechanical. Yeah, modern guns in the 21st century do have some electronic components to them. But back then, no, this would have been complete mechanics, fired. So how that happened, they never fully explained that either. And how it was able to disarm the grenades made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, that, unless it's something in the gas, but I swear the guns were starting to jam before the War Machine started firing, so... Yeah, I'm not sure. That was confusing, and the fact that kept going throughout that just long, drawn-out attack, it just seemed... It was just an odd sort of scene, Let's see. I did like the trap that they did for the One War Machine. I thought that was pretty cool. And then it's like, the Doctor, he didn't do too much in this episode. This honestly felt like an episode for like another Doctor. Like, this would be the third Doctor or the second Doctor even. But it's interesting to have this sort of story with the first Doctor, because obviously we haven't gotten too many stories like this where it's like, oh, the first Doctor and the military. Well, we've never seen that. Let's and it's like, okay, not a ton happened, but I like him figuring out the trap and then trapping this thing in there and then just going in and just with a normal screwdriver, I guess, just going in and reprogramming it. So I did like all that. Let's see. And then I guess that was pretty much it. We had the War Machine going in and destroying Votan, which I feel like that you should probably have a backup server just in case something like this does happen, Which I was also thinking, like, so is it going to go attack Votan, or is the War Machine going in and it's just going to explode? And it's like, well, there's people in there, so I don't think it's just going to go in and detonate, basically. Yeah. So, but yeah. And then I guess the only other thing is the ending when Ben and Polly sort of, like Ian and Barbara, they just sort of stumble into the TARDIS.
Oh, I forgot. He's got a key. I was supposed to give it to him. Let's go inside.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Hello.
Oh.
What was that?
That's a Java update available.
Oh, good.
So.
I thought you said Java. You got a Java update? what Star Wars program are you hooked into?
Yeah. So, okay. The next question. Why did Ben have a key to the TARDIS?
Because it was Dodo's, wasn't it? He said I was supposed to give this to you. So Dodo wanted to give the key back because she wasn't going to be traveling with the Doctor anymore. And didn't Dodo get it from Steven? Or Steven? I don't remember. But yeah, I remember the Doctor gave one of them a key when 2 or 3 episodes back.
Well, see, it's also strange just because the Doctor has pretty much never given out keys to the TARDIS, and so suddenly it's like Steven had a key, and then I guess Dodo had it, and then at the end here Ben has the key, and it's like, well, wait, where is this key coming from? Like, we're so not used to it.
Yeah, but I remember that he had to give one of them the key so that they could, when they were separated for some reason, again, I don't even remember what this one was. It wasn't the toy. I can't remember if it was the Ark. It must have been the Ark.
I guess. No, I think...
Unless it's before that.
It might have been the Savages, but I don't remember why exactly. Yeah. So...
But it was basically they were going to get separated, and he said, here, I need to give you a key, and I'll meet you back there, sort of thing. And so that obviously passed to Dodo, and then Dodo said, since I'm not going to be going with the Doctor, please give him this. And then he says, oh, wait a minute, I forgot. I got to get him this key. Oh, and then Polly takes it and opens it up, and they walk in, and off they go.
Yeah, so another group of people just accidentally going with the Doctor.
Shanghaied.
Yeah, this happens... this happens a little too much. Like, obviously, Ian and Barbara, but that's how the entire show gets started. Yeah. And it's like, okay, Vicky, they at least were like, hey, you want to come with us? And it's like, Steven, like, stowed away on the TARDIS, when they left that planet. And then Dodo barged in as well. And it's like, and now Ben and Polly are just going to do that before the Doctor realizes they're on there.
But again, to me, he makes perfect sense because... He was depressed. I mean, when we meet him, the whole thing was he was depressed that he didn't get to ship out with his friends. And again, I'm hoping that she will say, well, I've been working for years with this Votan thing, and now it's destroyed. So, hey, sure, I got nothing better to do. And besides, she's kind of taking a liking to Ben, so...
Yeah. We'll just have to hope that one day the Doctor can bring them back here. I mean, that's the thing is, when we come back here and it's like, okay, you do kind of expect Dodo to stay because it's like, well, this is her time and, this is her home. And it's like, and it's not often that the Doctor actually gets someone back home. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I understand that. Still could have had an actual send-off, but whatever. But yeah, it's like, I hope the two of them are ready because it's quite possible they're not going home for a while. Or they will be left in Troy or on... on that last planet where they have to be peacekeepers, like hopefully they get a better send-off than the past couple that we've had, honestly.
But then again, we've talked earlier about how when Gene Roddenberry put together Star Trek, he had literally a Bible. He said, this is where we're going. When they started this, they had no idea. And so I'm not sure that anybody, even at this point, as late as the 3rd season, says, you know what, we need to be sure that the companions do this, this, and this, and that we'll give them X amount of time, and then we'll figure out a way to either get them back home or leave them someplace. This is just, the producer, I think, didn't they say, wanted to get rid of Vicky, and so they were writing her out, and she didn't want to go, and so, how do we get rid of her? Well, we're in Troy. Here's a nice-looking guy. She's a PhD, 10 times over. So let her start the, Roman Empire.
I guess. I mean, that is true. That it's like they, even though we're 3 years into this now, they really are just sort of making things up as they go. Down to, we're building up to the first regeneration of the Doctor, which is only there because they just couldn't keep William Hartnell anymore. Yeah. That's the only reason that regeneration exists, and probably the only reason the show has lasted for 60 years is because they just needed a new actor, so they invented this this way of changing them out. So, I mean, I would wager to bet that there is no thoughts of Gallifrey or anything like that. There's just a vague, like, he's from another world. That's all they got. Yes. Yeah. So, Although I'm pretty sure at some point in the second Doctor's era, the Time Lords will show up. So,
well, we know that they showed up in the third Doctor because
yes.
in our travel through, Pertwee met one of them, the guy that was floating in the air, and said, "Hey, you got to the thing with the plastic men and the Master."
Yeah, so it's at least established by then. So I would imagine sometime with the second Doctor they start to really think about that. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this. This is, I mean, a good episode, a bit odd in some places, but still a good episode. Definitely interesting, and curious to see where we are going with, I guess, the last two Hartnell episodes that we've got coming up.
Smugglers and the 10th Planet.
Yes. So next episode is completely missing. We've got one last recon town for Hartnell, and then the 10th Planet. Only part 4 is missing, but it was at least animated, so there is that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our Doctor Who classic reactions, you can click on the playlist, you can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.